afternoon and welcome to yet another special edition of Labour Matters right here on KBN TV. You are watching us live on GSTV channel 279, Go TV 27, Topstar 102 and live on our Facebook page which is KBN TV. Today we are looking at an interesting and insightful topic which is HR policies and procedures. If you have any comments, questions or contributions, please do use the number which is right on your TV screen, or better you can go on our Facebook page which is KBN TV and drop us that comment. I am your host Patricia Chilambikwa, and you know I'm not alone in the studio. I'm always with Mr. Owen Kabanda. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. How are you doing?
I'm okay. How are you doing?
I'm feeling great.
Amazing. And Mr. Kabanda today is joined by an amazing woman. I believe last week you did see her. We had her in the studio, and she is with us today again, Miss Kalua. Good afternoon, Miss Kalua.
Good afternoon, Patricia. Thank you for having me.
Amazing. How are you doing?
I'm doing great.
Amazing. Mr. Kabanda, to start with, you've been receiving amazing positive feedback from our viewers about labor matters. They're saying they are learning a lot. What do you have to say about this?
Well, it's really great, as I said even in the other time. When we were starting this whole program, people were saying, "No, this is a very hard topic. It's very educational. There's not so much of entertainment." And so there will be few people maybe following the program, but over time I think it's been very good. We've received a lot of feedback, even from students. Shout out to Tawanga Zuru in the Copperbelt University, Charit at NIPA, other students at UNZA, who are actually following the program and saying they are learning a lot in terms of the practical things that are actually on the ground compared to what they are learning in terms of the theories. We have also received a lot of feedback even from employees who are also saying they are learning a lot and knowing their rights as well as their obligations. We always say these two, they go together. So we are happy. We've received feedback from the likes of Alice, there's Mary, there's Mr. Vincent, and so many others who have also been giving us feedback. Even just our colleagues in the HR fraternity, they have also been telling us how they've enjoyed the program, and they give us a lot of feedback in the background, even topics that they're having challenges with. We know we can't tackle everything in one session, so we are working on a program that allows us to tackle most of the challenges that even the HR practitioners are having in their day-to-day works. So we appreciate feedback from Rachel, Ruth, there's Vibeti, Mr. John, Lukonde, Preston, and so many other colleagues that have actually been getting in touch and giving us feedback. Even the employers themselves, the business owners, they are also appreciating. We have the likes of Mambo, Madam Evelyn, and even as far as Kawe. We received some calls even from as far as in Burungo. So it's really a program that is giving us encouragement when we get this feedback from the general public. We will endeavor to really bring to the front in terms of how employment needs to be and how this affects both employers and employees, so that there's a better employment relationship.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I believe all the shout-outs, the people watching, and the names that you've just, they're excited knowing that, okay.
There are a lot of them. We really cannot manage to mention everyone, but we just want you to know that we really appreciate and keep giving us the feedback, even things that you want us to keep on improving, or things that you think needs to be tackled in detail and things of that nature. So yeah, we greatly appreciate all the feedback from everyone.
Amazing. Let Miss Kalua, she should also talk. Mr. Kabanda, we've been talking.
So these days I should be talking less and just relaxing.
Ms. Kalua, coming to you, maybe you can just provide a clear understanding to viewers what human resources are all about.
Okay, so when it comes to policies, or rather, human resource, they do come up with these policies to help the organization run. So policies basically are just like guiding principles. How do you want to take care of your employees? How do you want to deal with your employees? And the employees also, they need to understand how the company wants them to be managed, what is expected of them, and how everything is supposed to work. Because in an organization, there's need for synergy, and policies and procedures are able to assist the employers, and the employees have that.
Amazing. Now, Mr. Kabanda, so how does procedures fit in the picture of policies?
Yeah, so definitely when you have the policy, because the policy is at the high level, it's like a pronouncement or the major guideline in terms of how the company will be dealing with various employment-related matters, like what Ms. Kaluwa said. The policy in itself will be a pronouncement, but it does not tell you how you are going to go about doing things. So the procedures then come in to help you step by step in terms of what should be done at each and every particular time. Who is going to make a request? Who starts a particular procedure? Let's say it's a recruitment, who starts that? Who makes the request? Who approves? Who goes to recruit? So the procedures are meant to help you to know the step-by-step processes that should be followed. And remember, once those things are actually approved by the board, then you have to follow them. And there are times that even the auditors will come, and when they say you did not follow procedure, it simply means your own procedures that were approved are not being followed in the company. And this is very common, especially in big corporations.
All right, before I go to Ms. Kaluwa, Mr. Kabanda, I believe there are some business owners and managers or even employees at times who strongly believe that policies and their procedures are frustrating. Frustrating is the word. It slows down business at times as they come to maybe various challenges. So what is your view or your take about this?
Well, yeah, it's a lot of people, yes, we go to different companies, and one of the things, we have policies, and these things, they really slow us. Some, they don't want to even have these policies in place because it appears that it slows them down. People want to make very quick decisions. If today I want to wake up and make a recruitment, I should be able to have coffee. By the time I'm finishing my coffee, I say, okay, so I like Mary and John, these we should hire. But really, it's if your business is growing, these policies and procedures become a necessity. Some of the frustrations, yes, and the challenges that come with policies, you will look at, first of all, having wrong policies in place. And this happens a lot in terms of when you go into some of the companies. What they do, Ms. Pinga here could have, in our company, they have policies. As an HR, I do, my friends, could you share a template? So these things happen a lot. Sometimes it could be your lawyer friends or another friend of yours working in another company. You get these templates. Some are even in hard copy. You start typing them out. Now, you are copying policies and procedures in another company, and these are not, they have not been tailored to your company. That is one of the biggest problems, and that is sometimes that brings frustrations, because when you take a document that comes from another company and you have not tailored it to your specific need. Remember, each company is unique in its own way, and some companies you find that maybe it's a big company. You have the managing director or the CEO, you have the chiefs, then you have managers, you have senior managers, and you have all these job grades all the way to the lowest level. But in your company, you are starting a business, maybe you only have 3 levels. There's only you and 1 supervisor, and the rest are employees. But you have gotten a document that speaks about all these levels, which you didn't customize to your situation. So sometimes that brings about frustrations. Also, the challenges that come with the policies and procedures sometimes have to do with the way they were crafted. The people who are actually involved in the crafting of the procedures and these policies, they need to know really what they are doing. You can have colleagues, for instance, we work a lot of times with our colleagues, the lawyers. The lawyers, and a lot of them, what they do is they understand the law, But in terms of the practical side of how things are implemented on a day-to-day basis, they have to work with the HR practitioners. And that actually makes a better team. You can also incorporate people from operations, finance, and so on, so that when you're having a policy, you have a proper policy. Now, in some cases where people simply take a policy because maybe it was just done by a lawyer or it was done by an HR and there is no practicality to it, that also becomes a challenge. Sometimes the people who are crafting those same policies, remember some of their employees, so they create policies which are favoring the employee, or sometimes policies that are only favoring the employer. So when you are having this kind of policies, it becomes a challenge. There is another bigger aspect also which relates to the bureaucracy that comes with policies. Now, sometimes because you have to follow the policies, everything that the policy says, sometimes that takes out some flexibility. You may be seeing your friend is banging himself there, but it says, the policy says the head of safety shall provide the safety. I'm not the one mentioned in this policy. Or there is something happening, there's an emergency happening, and the policy is so strict. So the people just say, no, that's not my job. You can have a policy which says no employee shall go to such and such a place, or let's say if it is a trip, you can't start off until you're paid. Now an emergency comes and you need to travel to for you guys to cover news, but in the policy it said you can't use your money. So sometimes the policies may, if they have been crafted in a manner that is so bureaucratic, it becomes a challenge. And that's why some people actually hate them, because it appears like it removes that aspect of you using your common sense. But it's important to understand that these things are there. Sometimes it's also the manner in which these policies are crafted. And that's why we emphasize that when you're starting policies, find people that can actually help you to develop policies that have a balance in terms of making sure that it's within the provisions of the law, but also there's some flexibility that allows for officers on the ground to do the work and get the job done. So that this balance then brings about business efficiency. But again, when developing the same policies, it doesn't have to be so open to a point where, again, the same policy can be abused. So the HR policies really, they are meant to help you to get things done in a systematic manner and a consistent manner and in a fair manner. But if they are not being applied properly, that is where the frustration comes. The other frustration really comes from the fact that sometimes the employer and the employees or supervisors, they have not been fully trained on the same policies. So you find policies are there, there's a nice book on the shelf, yet people have not understood how they need to do things, and in that way now it becomes difficult, especially when an employee wants something. Then let's say even in HR, you want a salary advance. There's a policy on salary advances, which you have not been told properly. You run around, then someone in HR tells, no, here it says we need 3 former, what do you call those, pay slips? But the policy says you submit 3 pay slips, yet the same company doesn't even give pay slips. So how does that work? So sometimes you need to be in a space where the employees are taught exactly what is expected, what they should be doing, so that you remove that frustration. Because when people know, then it becomes easy. There is also an aspect around issues to do with technology sometimes. When you have technology in place, yet your policies are still talking about the forms and other things, those also are things that lead to frustrations. So you need to be in a space where the policies that we are talking about, they should be up to date also. Because when you have policies which are not revised, maybe the law has changed, but your own internal policies are also saying something else, that could also lead to some serious challenges. And sometimes even a policy just being away from the law. Well, now we have, for instance, we have the employment code. Now it says what you pay 25% of gratuity on long-term contracts. Yet your own policy says if you are dismissed, if an employee here is dismissed, they will not get paid gratuity. But how is that now a proper policy when it is contrary to what the law is saying? So the frustrations that come with policies that are not aligned also is very real. But over and above, really, it is the challenges that relate to these policies and procedures. It's the way things have been made. It's the way the procedures have been made. Where procedures are just so complicated, it's also a huge problem. You can't have a policy that is so rigid to a point where officers can't even do anything. And remember, they are human beings with thoughts and feelings. That is what we have been saying on this program. So a person can say, oh, according to the policy, so I can't do anything. Yet the company needs decisions to be made. And so this is why we always emphasize that businesses need to engage people or consulting firms that actually know what they're doing. Again, it's not every consulting firm that can help you with the policies. It's important that you understand that proper policies need to be put in place. Policies that are also flexible enough, that allow for the business to run, but again, that allows you not to be so open to abuse. So those are the things that we normally emphasize in terms of safety valves in policies and procedures, so that once people understand, then they can work within those policies.
Ms. Kaluwa, coming to you now. After all the frustrations and the challenges, now what makes the policies and the procedures so important for any organization?
Okay, so one thing that is very important for companies to understand is that policies and procedures help in having this fairness in an organization. So that you understand, for example, if you have a disciplinary policy, you know that even if it's a manager or it's an employee, if they do something that's contrary to the policy, everybody will be merited the same punishment. So like that, everybody knows that, okay, these policies are for everyone and they're not just subjective. So they create that fairness in an organization. And also they promote a positive work culture. For example, if you have a health and safety policy, when you're going for work, you know that if anything happens to me, the organization has already put in place this policy that will be able to enable me to work safely. If the procedure says, everybody, when they come into the office, they need to be in maybe PPE, that's protective gear. You know that, okay, this has been deliberately put in place to ensure that I do not come to any harm or the harm is minimized. And so this is why it's very, very important, and it equally helps the organization when it comes to decision making, because you look at your policies and you say, okay, so how can we enable us to, maybe if it's talking about diversity and inclusion, how do we ensure that we have diversity and inclusion in this organization? And so you deliberately put in policies, and everything that you do it streams from these policies and these procedures that you've put in place. And that's why they're very, very important. And also on the legal side, like Mr. Kabanda has spoken, you have this certain policies, especially that are enshrined in the Employment Code Act of 2019, that each and every organization must have, because they ensure that, okay, the people are protected in this way. And they also ensure that, these organizations are running according to the law. So it ensures that you are, you're on the right side of the law as a company, and you have a positive work culture for everybody. And also just having, that confidence. When you go into an organization and you find policies, you know that, okay, this organization is,
There's order.
Yeah, there's order. If something comes up, I know that there should be, something that's going to help me, and I'm going to understand what is expected of me, especially when you have new employees. It's very, very important. And, it just fosters that confidence that, okay, this organization knows what they're doing.
Well highlighted. Mr. Kabanda, coming to you, maybe you can talk about law. Are there any legal regulations that make it mandatory for the company to have policies and procedures in place?
Yeah, definitely. Again, this is where we see, especially our colleagues in the SMEs, the medium enterprises, when they are coming up with the businesses and they are formalizing companies, and no, we don't need policies. For us here, it's just we need to make money. That's what is important. It's not like that.
like policies are not important.
They're not
All we want is
important.
money.
What we all need here is to make money. And look, the issue here is that there are so many laws in this country, and one of those that, I mean, we have been saying the same thing in the previous episodes. When you look at the Employment Code, Act number 3 of 2019, it has provided that under Section 95 that you need to have policies and procedures and the code in place. So it's not something nice to have, because some people, well, it would be nice to have those things. No, it's not something nice to have. It is an obligation, a legal requirement that you have in place in your business, policies and procedures. And when inspections are actually done, there are serious penalties that are given. That's why you see some companies, even in the news now, being followed up because of things that we're talking about. So it's important that the company puts in place the policies and procedures. Under Section 95, as I've said, you need to have policies relating, for instance, to HIV, policies relating to harassment, even disciplinary matters, issues to do with grievances, and so on. So all these are required to be in place. Further, it is even a requirement that once you have these policies in place, don't do what some companies do. They will bring a consultant, the consultant helps them to create policies, and then they put it there on the shelf. And now we have everything. So that when auditors come or some inspectors come, they say, no, it is there. No. The law requires that you go beyond that. It's not just creating or developing policies. You need to bring these policies to the attention of the employees, meaning that train the employees. Employees need to know, and these are things we have been talking about even earlier on with Ms. Kadova here. You need to make sure that the managers know what is supposed to be done and the employees know what is expected according to your policies. So why those things become important is because once employees know, you are working on making your place of work, or there should be industrial harmony. People are going to work knowing that this and this is what my employer can actually do for me. And if I want something like this, if I want, like I said, to be recruited in this company, these are the processes they follow. For me to be promoted, this is the process. For me to get a salary advance, this is the process. If I'm HIV positive, this is what the company will do for me. If I'm harassed, I remember harassment for our viewers, go and read the anti-gender-based violence of 2011. That law is very stiff, very strict. So it is important that those kind of things are brought to the attention of the employees, because sometimes employees do things they don't know. So if you don't tell them what is expected of them in the company, then it becomes unfair. So the conduct that is expected of the employees, you bring it to their attention, and then in case something happens which is contrary to those policies, you have provided the procedures that this is what will happen, this is what your manager will do, or this is what you as an employee can do. Further, when you look at even Section 5 of the Employment Code, Act number 3 of 2019, again there's a provision that within the company, even these policies that we're talking about, when developing them, they need to be policies that don't bring about discrimination to two groups of people: the employees and prospective employees. Prospective employees are those, the job applicants. There is need that when the company is, for instance, recruiting, they are not discriminating based on things to do with, let's say, gender, political affiliation, where the person comes from, ethnicity, and there is a whole bunch of things that have been provided in that law to stop employers from discriminating. And that's why sometimes employers find themselves in problems because they have not paid attention to simple things. And this is even for the job seekers. If you have applied for employment and you think you are left on grounds which are stipulated under Section 5, you have the right to bring that to the attention of the relevant authorities. If you are an employee and you think you are not benefiting from training or from promotions because you are being discriminated in the policy within the company has been made in such a way that it's discriminatory. Again, the employee has a right even to bring these things to the attention of management through the grievance procedure. If the things can't be resolved within the company, the employees have the right even to escalate matters to the courts and so on. So that is how serious these things are, and that's why it's important that in a company you have proper policies and procedures that have been prepared in such a manner that they help the employees in a day-to-day work.
Well explained.
Yeah.
To our viewers, if you are just joining us, watching Labour Matters on KBN TV, and we're also live on our Facebook page, which is KBN TV. If you have any questions or comments or contributions, please do use the number which is right on your TV screen. Don't call us, just drop us a text message. I have been receiving calls. Don't call. If you have questions, please just text us. Coming to you, Ms. Kaluba, I know Mr. Kabanda has highlighted about the legal requirements when it comes to policies. So can you give us or our viewers a real example of how HR policies and procedures come to play?
Okay, I can give an example of health and safety policy. You know, a health and safety policy is very important for employers to ensure that it's in place. You know, it also has a legal backing where, you know, in Zambia, you need to be able to affiliate to the Workers' Compensation Board, or fund rather. And it's very important that, you know, employers understand this, because if, for example, you know, you have this policy, health and safety, and then procedures in place. You have maybe ensuring that you've got fire extinguishers in the organization, you've got the first aid kit, and you train employees to be able to do that. And it's very important that, you know, people understand the policy that you have in place and what and how it's supposed to be done. So you have, for example, maybe if somebody is injured at the workplace, what do? You know that, okay, if the procedure in place says that, you know, you must notify HR, and then you take this person to the hospital, and then they, you know, contact the next of kin, and all those things. You have to report to Workers' Compensation Board, and they come and do investigations and all those things. You have to clearly state that. And so it helps employees know that, okay, if something happens, this is what they said we should do. And this is where training is very, very important. You need to be able to train your employees, like Mr. Kabanda said, about these policies. They're not nice to have. You just have it and you pack it. And then when something happens, or maybe there's a fire, and everybody is everywhere, you can't even account on who is still in the office, or, you know, if everybody has made it out alive, who is supposed to assist, you know, or if somebody gets injured at the workplace, you know, the employees need to know that, for example, if they work in a factory and then they injure themselves, and then they need to understand how the Workers' Compensation Board comes into play. It also helps the employer in a sense that it covers them. And so, you know, in as much as people might want to think, oh, you know, this is not relevant, this is not important, incidents and accidents happen at any time. And so you need to be deliberate about the type of policies that you have in place. They need to be able to cover you as an employer and also the employees. And of course, we also have some, you know, policies, for example, like a salary advance. If I want to get a salary advance, I come into this organization, I've got something that I need to get. Maybe it's an emergency. I need to understand if there's, you know, this policy for salary advance, what is needed from me. Am I supposed to, you know, work maybe for 2 months or 3 months? That's when I'm eligible, or what percentage do they give? So these are the type of policies that are supposed to be put in place. You look at the size of the organization. You look at the people that you have. You look at, you know, like, is it a global organization? You look at all these things, because if you're in a global organization, you need to look at it on a wider scale. What policies am I going to have in this organization that will cater for everybody globally? you know. And so people need to look at policies as an important and integral part of every organization, because it helps you make decisions and it helps you run the organization. So it's not nice to have, like Mr. Kabanda kept saying, you need to have these things in place, and it brings about order and, you know, just minimizes disputes. Because you wouldn't want to start finger pointing and saying, no, you know, why have you given this one a salary advance you haven't given me? Why is this person eligible and not me? And so, you know, you need to be able to back it up and say, no, our policy says you need to have worked for 3 months. This is why, this is when you're eligible. You have only worked for 1 month. This is why this was refused, and all these things. So you need to be very deliberate, they need to be very clear, and they need to be communicated.
Amazing. Mr. Kabanda, coming to you, maybe you can just walk us through some policies and the procedures practically.
Okay. Yeah, so I think as Ms. Kalua said, really what's important is the company needs to be in a space where you have the policies that are required. So to simplify things, look at the life cycle of an employee. And once you look at the life cycle of an employee, then that starts to help you in terms of what policies you need to have in place. Starting from just the strategic, the HR strategic planning itself, you need to have policies in place. And this is now, I know that this is for the medium enterprises, it may be a lot, but they could also, depending on when they sit down with their consultants to see what exactly could apply. Of course, the mandatory ones by law, they need to be in place. The other ones are just important policies that you need to put in place. For instance, as I was saying, you start from the strategic part of it. What kind of policies are you putting in place in terms of when you should be planning for your employees? The budgeting aspect. So you are going to have these policies that guide when you need to go for your planning sessions and what you need to consider, the thresholds. So there's a lot of thinking around what strategies you are going to adopt in a company. There are strategies around how you, if your workforce is going to be predominantly young people, how are you going to manage those? If it is predominantly older people, how are you going to manage that? If your budget lines, how much would you be spending on labor compared to revenues and so on. So you could have policies on the strategy side of things, the HR strategy that encompasses the planning and the budget. Moving on, you now have policies now around the recruitment. I know this is the most common policy you find in almost any organization. And that's why sometimes we see when we go into some companies, you find they just copied from somewhere. And the issue is when it comes to recruitment, have policies that are very clear and aligned to your company needs. What that means is that what of course is your philosophy as a company? Are you looking at getting more people from outside, or you believe in a philosophy of growing people from within the company? Because that starts to change a lot of things. So that's why we are saying you need to have a proper understanding of what you're doing. If your philosophy is growth from within, then it means it affects your recruitment processes. You might need now to recruit people who, once you bring them in, you're now growing them within the company. Then what processes are you going to follow? Are you starting with is your policy starting with recruitment of staff from within, or you are going to advertise and get people from outside? Are you doing headhunting? All those things need to be stipulated in your policies so that it's guiding whoever comes. And then you are going to now have the processes that are now going to be followed. That is, if you advertise, where are you going to advertise? Is it just you standing on the corner there and say, oh, I'm looking for someone, or you're going to put in the newspapers, or you're going to put in on online platforms? So those things now have to be stipulated, because remember that these policies and the procedures are put in place, sometimes they also come at a cost. And that's why we are saying when you're developing policies, it's not a matter of copy and paste, because some of these things you put them in your policies. If your policy says you shall advertise in not less than 3 times in the newspaper. Maybe the one advert in the newspaper is now costing you 8,000. What does that do to the business? And then, no, this is too expensive, we won't advertise. Just find a way to advertise, not in the newspapers. But your own policy says we should advertise in the newspapers. So that now means you have gone against your policy. Who approved that deviation from the same policy? So it's important that even when we look at recruitment, you have the policy in place, very clear. If you are going to, how are you going to, when you receive the applications, how are you going to screen and shortlist and reduce the number? Will you have a committee, or it's just one person can make such decisions? So all those things start to now be built into your policies and procedures. And when are you going to be subjecting people, for instance, to aptitude tests or psychometric assessments? What does the policy say? These things help in guiding the HR, meaning that the HR who is there today, or you bring another person tomorrow, they will come and find these things in place. So it is not about, no, I feel like, now the policy says.
I feel like.
No, I feel like.
Right.
So that's only part of recruitment. Once now the person starts work, they have been confirmed and so on. What then do you look at? You have now policies around salaries and conditions of service. Again, those things need to be very clear. For instance, on salaries, you need to have clear policies on what salaries you are going to be implementing in your company. And when people come, is your policy that they will be on the entry salary, or they can start at any other point? Are you going to have salary structures in place? Are you going to have salaries based on a certain percentile based on the market? So there is a lot of thinking, especially for big companies. We encourage them to have these things in place, because it then removes a lot of people looking at the person and saying, oh, okay, I like her, she's nice, okay. So this one was getting 5, I'll give you 9. Because there is no guidance, there are no guidelines. So even on salaries and things of that nature, even what will be constituting a salary, those will be put to be very clear. Issues around when can the company pay, what these things that Ms. Karuba was talking about, if the company has the finances, how do people even get to access things like salary advances or staff loans? Those things need to also be clear in your policies and procedures. Again, as we said, policies are guidelines, they are at a higher level, but when it comes to the procedures to be followed, you put those things in place so that the employees will know that this is what is required of us. Coming to performance, remember, it's not just paying people salaries. You still need to have policies that guide in terms of how employees are going to be performing. What is your policy around performance management? If a person is not performing well, what happens to them? Are we saying, okay, it's okay, they can continue working here, we are okay? Or no, we need to train them, or no, we need to get them out. So the company needs to have policies that guide. We shouldn't have this thing of, oh no, I feel like, here, Baba, you're here, you need to work like this. And also marrying the performance with the reward systems. It's always important. So, and these are things that even auditors, when they come, they'll be checking, especially for big companies. And even for us, when we go to do our HR audits, there are things that we check. What exactly is in this company? Because also you find that people, because they create friendships, okay? Where, because Ms. Karuba likes someone, she gives this person something more. And this one, now, remember she was talking about consistency, fairness. If we are allowing a situation where decisions are just being made by a person, especially in big companies, then you have a bigger problem. That's why the policies become important in terms of how you manage performance and rewards. The same thing with the training. How do people get to be trained? Have policies that guide on how your employees will be trained. Will they be trained internally, where you bring the consultant on the ground so that you don't disrupt the operations? Will employees be trained online? Will the employees be allowed to go and attend training outside so that they acquire the skills? Will the company be paying for the training? And what kind of training will the company pay for? Can the employer actually give you leave? Be it paid study leave where the company is paying for, I don't know for how long, or unpaid study leave. So even the training and development aspect needs to be guided by the policies as well as the procedures that have to be followed. The same thing with discipline. We have talked in the past about the disciplinary management. How do people get to be charged and so on. So there are all these things that have to be done in terms of policies and procedures that have to be followed step by step, all the way to employee separation. You can't start saying no because this guy he has been doing this, you really don't like him. So you walk away with nothing. Baba, who are you? Yeah? So it's not based on how you feel at that point. No. That's why we say have these things in place, proper policies and procedures. Okay, if it is a resignation, that is a form of separation, how will the employee be treated? How will they be paid? What clearance should they do? If it is a dismissal, what will be the process to be followed so that you're within the law, if it's a redundancy? And some of these things, you might not find everything stipulated in there. Some will refer to the law and so on. But again, it's a matter of having the policy in place, which is guiding what the company will do, as well as the process. And again, we have to emphasize all these things mean nothing if the managers don't know and if the employees don't know.
Amazing. I know, Ms. Kalwe, you talk about the importance of training, if I did get you right. But if you can, again, talk about it, you can share the importance of training and education for managers and employees on HR policies and procedures.
Okay. When it comes to training is very vital for everyone. When people come into the organization, you need to train them on the policies that you have. Why? Because you're trying to have a certain culture that you want everybody, when they come in, they understand that culture, they understand what is expected of them and how they're going to work in that organization. When it comes to older employees, if you have something that is new that has come in, maybe new technology, new ways of doing things, these policies need to be taught to everyone so that they know how to, if it's an SOP, they understand what is needed from them. And, we are in a rapidly changing environment right now. I think Owen has talked about flexibility. You need to be able to tell the employees, okay, this is the policy and whatnot, and they can be able to understand what type of flexibility they have when it comes to such a policy. They should be able to say, okay, how about if you're not around? Who else can authorize this in case we've got an emergency? And so you have also like other emergency procedures. In case this person is not around, this is how we do it. So training is very vital because it helps you get also feedback from the employees. They'll be able to tell you, okay, bosses, this policy can't work because this is how we work. These are the tools that we use. What you're asking for us maybe is advanced, or it's something that we used to do a long time ago. And so you get that feedback. You're able to change the policy to suit what is going on right now and be able to reflect, the ever-changing work environment that is happening right now. And so you need to be able to get that feedback from the employees. You get that feedback from the supervisors also, and you'll be able to, make sure that that policy, the employees, they own it. Employees, supervisors, managers, they need to own the policy. Because if you train somebody and, it's just like, okay, they're just waiting for the time you'll be done training them and then they leave. It serves you no purpose. If you train and people do not understand, or they do not care for it, or they don't feel like it's theirs, they just say, they are training us for themselves. They want us to do this. Yeah. But when you make them see that it's important and how it helps them and how it helps the business to move forward, they'll be able to own it. So training helps you to ensure that, employees are able to own the policies, they're able to understand them, they give you feedback, and, and how you train them also matters. You need to look at the education level of your employees, the technology that you're using. All these aspects come into play. And so training is very, very vital. You need to train your employees. You need to retrain old employees. Sometimes you forget. I mean, I'm human. If there are like maybe 20 policies, I won't be able to remember everything. But if somebody maybe quarterly they come through and they say, okay, we'll be training you on this and this policies, it helps you remember. It helps you also come back with feedback and say, okay, this is working, this is not working. And it helps the organization move forward. So training is very, very important. You can't just pack it, like Mr. Kabanda has said, and then you leave it, the employees don't know anything about it, or they're forgotten about it. The only time you remember is maybe in a disciplinary. You said there's this policy that you signed 3 years ago, and it talks about this is what you've done. And the employee has no idea. Maybe when they came in, you didn't explain it to them, just told them, sign. If you want this job, sign. And you know how it is when you're looking for a job and you're like, okay, I don't care. You're just signing, They give you this, you're just signing, and it comes to back to bite you when maybe there's a disciplinary meeting happening and they refer to that policy that you never even understood. They never explained it to you. They never gave you time to ask and, assimilate it. And then the next thing, you find you're being chased because of something that you didn't even understand, that you didn't even know. So like Mr. Kabanda has said, it's very important for employees to know. Sometimes they do things because they don't know, or because you rushed the process and they didn't understand that policy. So very, very important to train employees. Yeah.
Amazing. Oh, Mr. Kabanda. Maybe you can, under a minute, you can also talk about the importance of training as we get to read some of the text messages that we've received so far.
Really, I think much has been said by Ms. Karuba. It's just really important that managers understand, because what you want is consistent application of even your own policies. Because sometimes, you remember, there's a human nature at play where you have a nice policy, but the people who are supposed to implement that same policy behave in a manner that is maybe sometimes even contrary to the policy. So the training becomes important even for supervisors and managers to say, even for instance, just for leave, train the people to know. It's not just a matter of saying, no, the policy here says you should save X amount of months. But then the person is in a space where they actually need that leave so much. So it's a matter of them knowing what can they do in order to still assist the employee and still be within the provisions of the policy. For the employees, as she has said, it's really knowing what the company can and cannot do. Because sometimes there is a lot of expectations, which the employee, sometimes we say an employee is like a child. So the child expects a lot from the parents, even when they can't buy everything. It's the same thing with an employee. The employee wants a lot from the employer. So it's a matter of helping them to understand what the company can and cannot. And in that way, you kind of find a balance in terms of expectations from the employees.
Well explained. So our first text message reads, may I ask what is policy and procedures? I think this person has just joined us, but you take it up. Hello, I have just joined the program. What of these HR who are getting money from people saying they will get jobs, because I am in the same situation for a month now, still waiting for the job? Maybe just these two text messages as we are running out of time. Okay,
so policy, as we said, in a very simplified manner, is really a guideline. It's a pronouncement at the high level of what the company will do. The procedure is the how it will actually do it. And really, we can continue the conversation even on Facebook and so on. For the colleagues that are talking about paying for getting jobs, really, this is one thing we did talk about it in the other episode. Don't pay to get money, to get a job. Because when you pay to get a job, you will pay even at the time of probation. You will continue paying even when you are being considered for a promotion. So, really get jobs on merit, then you work with. And if somebody is actually asking for money or for other favors, you know what I'm talking about. There are police stations all over. Just report them or take them to the office. So simple as that.
Amazing. Ms. Kalwa, your last remarks.
I just want to say that, it's very, very important for organizations to put policies and procedures in place. This helps the organization in so many ways to ensure that, legally they're covered and they're able to set the tone on how the organization will run. So very, very important. And if you don't have these things in place, get in touch with the consultants, like Mr. Kabanda has said. So yeah, I think that's all from my side.
Mr. Kabanda.
Well, it's much of what we needed to say has been said. It's just important to have all these things in place. And again, we continue appreciating the feedback. These topics, actually, they are huge topics, and we will try to cover as many topics as we can. Let's continue the conversation